might we just introduce the session. We are going to be exploring what it means to be a platform worker in Indian cities where, as we know, temperatures are crossing 40 degrees, 45 degrees, and often due to the effects of climate change and increasing heat, the burden of increasing heat is often borne by informal outdoor workers. One such group happens to be platform workers or gig workers, as we commonly call them. Today, we'll be exploring the everyday realities of gig workers who work in outdoor conditions in extreme heat. We'll also together try to explore alternative urban futures for gig workers. So, what is it that needs to change to reduce heat burden on gig workers? And who are the different actors that are involved in making powerful decision making roles that can reduce the burden for these gig workers? And how can we sort of together bring about meaningful change? We'll basically be doing this by taking you through a few visuals as well as a few case studies or stories of workers that we have collected from the field. Let's begin.
Take you through a small journey where a worker, especially the gig worker, has to deal with the everyday reality. So I'll show you the images and take you through. Okay, what do you see here? It's a gig worker that I met in Delhi, and as you know, that these workers have to operate through their cell phones. Technically, their whole operations happen on the cell phone. The workers has to deal with different issues on the road. One of those is heat, as Anusha explained. So yeah, what do you see? So very interesting cardboard and all that.
We would love responses. I mean, this is an interactive workshop, so most of the answers are going to be coming from your. So it's okay. There's no right wrong answer. See whatever you think.
Yes, exactly. And how often you guys see? It's very common these days, right? And the worker has to do all the makeshift every day on daily basis to protect his phone. So basically, he keeps his phone on the meter so that the heat doesn't fall or rain doesn't fall. So the workers usually force themselves to add different ideas to how to protect their livelihoods through phone, right? So yeah, you can find these makeshifts in different parts of the India where you use Gobar or Zomato Swiggy. Yeah, so what do you see here? Rider inside waiting not allowed. Andar baithna hua intezar karna sab mana hai. So this image is from Delhi, where I took it in outside the places where the workers usually stay and all that, and we usually go and change batteries because a lot of workers operate through EV and all that. So see how these cities are not including them as a come and share space you are allowed here. They're not welcome, right? And these board signs are very visible in extreme heat where workers can't be there and just cool it down, right? She's the one worker I usually interact with every day. She's a female gig worker, single parent, and usually she has to take different stops to hydrate, wash her face, and make sure that she's able to work. The t-shirt that you're seeing right now is made of polyester, a material that is usually not very heat friendly, and it's usually affect the working conditions of the different workers, right? And the color is very bright. Usually the bright colors isn't good for the heat, right? So this is one of the examples that happens. Okay, so what do you see here? It's a worker, waiting. So these makeshifts that the worker usually do, it's also the resting place, right? The heat is coming from the bike, the heat is coming from everywhere, right? And the workers has to wrap themselves so that the heat doesn't touch them. See the neck, see the helmet, see the covering here, right? So again, it's the extra heat that coming up from the different items he has to protect himself getting the heat, right? So extra burden from the vehicle, environment, and the clothing that he has to do. And nothing is sponsored by the aggregators. They have to pay everything, every makeshift on their own. Even the bike get damaged in the heat because they have to work more than 10 hours, 12 hours based on different aggregators platforms. Right? Yeah, so what do you see? Just look at your hand. It looks nice and good, right? But this is a hand of a worker that deals with, these are the hands that carry your orders every day. Either Amazon, Blinkit, Zepto, or any quick commerce or e-commerce that you order, right? So this is a worker I met in Delhi, and this is a hand of a worker that deals with every day 10 to 12, 15 hours of the day through heat, and the hand is exposed to the heat. So that's how it happens. Particularly, more than 50% of workers that we track every day. So yeah, I did.
Thanks, Nitesh. So yeah, we looked at what everyday realities of these workers looks like when from the time they get an order till the time they deliver an order. We also have two case studies. These are essentially stories that we collected from the field, and we just like to take you through some of them. After which we will essentially try to imagine how we can make work a little easier for these gig workers in the context of extreme heat. Maybe we can read out the story. Yeah. It's a short story, maybe we'll take 2 minutes to just read it out. This is the story of Irfan, who is a 30-year-old food delivery worker in Delhi. He studied till the 9th standard, after which he had to drop out of school to support his mother and sister. For the last 2 years, he has worked with Swiggy. He rides an electric scooter purchased on loan and works 12 to 14 hours a day to repay the debt while covering household expenses. This June, Swiggy promised an additional incentive for working at least 3.5 hours at noon. Despite the scorching heat, Irfan has been working hard every afternoon. One such day, his ratings dropped and his incentives were slashed after a customer complained that he had not delivered their order. Irfan has been trying to contact Swiggy support to explain what happened, but he has not been able to reach anyone. The day of the complaint, the temperature was 43 degrees. Irfan had a severe headache while riding. His uniform, made of synthetic material, clung to his skin, making him even more uncomfortable. He tried looking for a shaded spot or public space to rest, but could not find one. The delivery app kept sending constant pings, order delayed, hurry to avoid penalty, etc. Each alert added to the pressure to keep moving. He tried to keep riding, but had to eventually stop near the side of the road and wait until he felt stable enough to continue. By the time he reached the customer's building and climbed 5 stories, it was past the promised 20 minutes and the customer refused to accept the order, saying it had gone cold. The app recorded this as a delay. The customer's complaint triggered a rating drop and the algorithm reduced his incentives. As the heat wave intensified that week, the company sent no alerts or instructions, and there was no policy for workers like Irfan to stop, rest, or recover. All of this is based on a worker that we've met and stories that we collected from him. What do you feel after listening to the story? Any immediate sort of first thoughts or reactions? How does it make you feel? What do you think went on in Irfan's mind as his day unfolded? We're not looking for like solutions at this stage. So like what you felt when you heard the story.
Anything, no right and wrong answers. Anything works.
Firstly, thank you. I just felt goosebumps while listening to the story. I felt I could imagine like visually imagine how the story would have unfolded. And I mean, I felt like at least we could have reached out to ask what had happened, which is the bare minimum that they could do. So yeah, that's my first thought when it goes.
Thanks. Anyone else? Did it make you angry? Whom did you feel angry with? So she mentioned, Swiggy could have reached out to the worker, maybe investigate what had happened. Is there anything else that you think any of the actors in this situation could have done?
I think there should be a proper employer-employee relationship between them so that they get the accountability that can be taken by them. And that's the whole reason employers and employee relationship, the lack of employer and employee relationship. That's the main reason for not getting benefits, like gig workers not getting benefits under the labor codes also because of not having them.
We'll just write some of these things down. So, what you essentially mentioned is categorizing them as employees, right? So currently, gig workers are considered. They're not considered employees,
Yeah.
because of which they're not eligible for a lot of the benefits that workers in the formal sector get.
They don't come under the definition.
They don't come under the definition of employees. So replication. Sorry, this is a little warm. So employees, the platform should have reached out to the work. I hope this is visible.
Yes. Yeah.
Reached out to the worker. Okay. Taking one step back, what is it? Do you think? So, Irfan stayed in Delhi. Do you think Delhi is an ideal city for workers? What can we change about Delhi to make things easier for Irfan?
So this is something that I was thinking about when Nidesh was also telling the stories before. Was that we're looking at Delhi decreasing the number of shelter spaces, shaded spaces in Delhi. So that's like decreasing on an everyday basis, which is the bare minimum. Like there are no public spaces where people can just sit and relax. So yeah, shaded spaces are something that Delhi at least can do.
Right.
And one more thing that can be done is actually provide restrooms for the gig workers, to be honest. Like, I don't know if, yeah.
Yeah, you were saying something you can.
No, by restrooms, I mean the actual resting rooms. Yeah, it's like restrooms doesn't, I do not mean like washrooms.
Yeah.
But when I went to
Cooling centers.
when I said the
Yeah. Absolutely. That's also been one of the demands of unions working with gig workers, that there needs to be rest stops, cooling stops. It could be a room, it could be any sort of a covered area with cooling facilities. It can have a fan, it can have water facilities, just for workers to be able to go and rest. I think Chennai has come up with something like this, but not any other city, not for now at least.
Yeah, I was just adding. Sorry, just one thing. I was just adding to your thought that I don't know what Chennai has come up with, but we do this cooling resting spots when there's a yatra or something that's going on, like ours, for example, or something that happens in UP a lot where I live. So they create resting stops every 500 meters. So I can't do it for workers.
Yeah.
Like that happens only it can happen for a religious reason. Why can't it happen for
Precisely. I mean, it also raises question of whom the city is for.
Exactly.
If the city has the power and the funds to build resting stops for like a yatra or a political procession, why is it not done for workers who are on the road for 15 hours? And you see them everywhere, especially in cities like Delhi or Bangalore or Hyderabad. Every few meters there's a delivery worker on the road, but it's not being done for them. Anything else under the city that the city can do differently?
So I'm not in getting that state, but when I was reading the story, the one thought I had was, why can't they make the algorithm better? Because when if it coming to a company and when it is an interaction wise, there is a lot of people and there is a lot of network to reach. Instead, when it is the technology doing the work, I feel the algorithm, the incentive systems, or these heat wave alerts and all, if the company can understand it, or if it is even sent to the customers for them to connect properly with the workers, that would add very much value.
Yes.
So I have worked with a little more than occupied here, and there it was the grocery delivery made to 10 minutes. The difference was that we did not get these minutes or a delay, high volatility, because the relationship between the company, the customer, and the employee was a different kind. There was an imperative to deliver soon, but there was no direct link, it did not affect the incentives at all. Even the customers did not actually hold us accountable for a delay because the customer also, it was a relationship that was manufactured between us and the customer. So I think this imperative of delivering early, which is the primary selling point of the
To these
companies.
apps, Blinkit now is like Blinkit, all of these apps are like home delivery 10 minutes away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look at the history of delivery times, it started as 90-minute deliveries in 2017, then it came down to 60, then 30, then 15, and now as sister says, they come in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And that needs to be questioned.
Absolutely. One of the things that also caused Irfan a lot of stress is this constant notifications that he kept getting on his phone. Because of unrealistic delivery timelines, in peaky 20 minutes or like you're saying 4 minutes is an extremely unreliable timeline. It is not possible for a worker to collect an order, wade through all the traffic and all. Our roads are first of all in bad conditions. Another thing, like we have bad roads. It's not easy to navigate our roads.
Traffic is a huge problem, especially in like Gurgaon, like cities where the office traffic is like huge.
Right. Can we think of anything else? If not, we can move to the next story. We can put both the stories together and think of what sort of interventions we can come up with.
I've been thinking about how Uber works. So I use Uber almost on a daily basis, and there a lot of the times the drivers themselves feel quite empowered that they could also reach out to Uber and complain about me. It's not that I am the only one who can. So that mechanism, that power, that he did not feel that way should be given. Like I don't know if it's perfect like the Uber, but there should be a mechanism where the drivers themselves are able to reach out to the platform and be like, hey, it's not my fault, and this is what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons why Uber drivers or like ride-hailing workers work, like drivers with Uber, Ola, all of these apps, I'm not going to say that at an advantage, but one of the sort of what puts them at like a relative sort of an advantage is that historically these are workers who have unionized. So there has been an existing collective of drivers. But food delivery workers are an entirely new category of workers, and it's extremely difficult to sort of organize them. It's also difficult to organize drivers, but there has been an existing historical union or a collective that can be carried forward. And these are also workers that come from a little more capital. Not all of them, but some of them drive their own cars, as opposed to food delivery workers who come from an even lower socioeconomic strata than a lot of the drivers. Yes.
So also that I think right now the work happens at scale. The more deliveries you do, the more income you make.
Yeah.
It connects to them being designated as employees. If incentives are linked to the rate and work and the standard salaries, then probably this, even if you have the shade areas, even if you have the shelters, if I don't want to wait because I'll be losing a lot of income, I would not want to wait. And it's a form of self-exploitation I'll do to myself because my incentives are linked to the amount of work that I do. So I think it connects to the conversation on there was employees and having standard salaries without these scale incentives.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, one of the sort of not responses, so not Uber, Zomato recently put out a report saying on an average, their workers earn around 25,000 to 30,000, which is a fairly, I mean, no one is looking at the veracity of this, we don't know how true this is. But this came from Mr. Goyal, the founder of Zomato. So if your workers are on average and earning 25,000, make them employees, pay them 25,000 as a salary. If you're already claiming to be paying them 25,000. But of course and these are also companies that make a huge amount of revenue, right? None of which goes into the pockets of the workers.
I thought because of that claim, I thought that Zomato is actually paying the salary.
No, there is no salary. It is, I mean, but because of that claim, I mean, delivery workers first of all don't make 25,000. It was I mean, there is no. This is not rooted in any truth.
It's
if I can say
shocking
so.
because it became part of the narrative that
It is.
like I could hear people on the street talking about that these guys earn a basic salary just like an entry level job. So what are they complaining about?
Yeah.
So because of that, I think it became a narrative that these guys earn this much.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
And also, even if a worker does earn 25,000, I think Nitesh can also add to this. They work for like 15 hours a day to be able to make something close to 25,000. So that 25,000 is not your 9 to 5 job. It's not an 8-hour or even a 9-hour work shift. It is extremely long hours that they work, even if they were to receive that 25,000. But yeah, absolutely, like you said, if the wages are linked to the specific task that they do, of course they're constantly going to be on the move, trying to do more tasks and hence trying to earn more wages. Versus if they were categorized as an employee and they were paid like a formal wage and they were not into like the formal sector.
And this additional incentive which they said that is actually in place.
This was something that we saw that in June in Delhi, a worker got a notification saying, one of so they suggest work shifts. One of the work shifts suggested was 12:30 to 3:30. They had to work a minimum of 3.5 hours to be able to receive a specific set of incentives.
So what we work with some of the weekend platforms, what we heard from them as of February is that they don't have any incentives, especially when it comes to the summer. They don't have incentives. We all know that rain, they do have this additional charges which they take from the customers. Even the rain is questionable. It may or may not reach the gig worker actually. In summer, as of February this month, from the Swiggy and gig workers within Hyderabad, what we heard is that they don't have it on sale.
So I want to add something here. So basically, I met a Zepto driver. Okay. So we also wrote an article I'll talk about later. So the worker has to meet a certain amount of rights, right? For example, a worker has to meet 19 rights or 20 rights. That 20 rights, so he can get the incentive. So there is a lot of precarity happen on every order that he or she is doing. For example, he has to break the red lights. He has to take the wrong turns. He has or she has to make the extra speed to meet the targets because they say, "Bhaiya, agar us time pe nahi pahuncha, to main incentive mana jayega." So that means that if he or she doesn't make on time, the incentive goes down. Sometimes pays, some doesn't pay. It depends on the aggregators. But understand how one order is getting to them. For example, these are class description also. The T-shirt isn't allowed to enter the societies. They have to wait to enter. Then the lift is not there. And heat is the extra pressure. So continuously he's getting calls from the customer. Continuously is getting calls from the aggregators. So in one making the order, you have to understand that how a worker is pushing the limits, right? But at the end, sometimes they do get the incentive, sometimes they don't. Because cities are not ready for the workplace as well. I'm sure.
I just wanted to bring out one sort of a distinction here, the nature of incentives. It was not additional pay for him having worked during the heat. This was part of his, daily
It's
incentive.
nothing to do with the
What you are
price.
referring to is increased pay, like a climate hazard pay.
Yes.
Recognizing heat as a climate or an occupational hazard and paying on top an additional sort of a surcharge that is
Surcharge.
currently something that the customers have to pay, but
For the-
something that has to
yeah.
be paid to workers.
So even if they ask from the customers to start with, like they're asking us for during the rains you have to pay a surcharge.
I mean, you pay, but it is not.
Right. It's not going to them. That's
We don't
why
know if it is going.
it has to know. From what we heard, it tells that the app will have a geo-coded location, obviously, and it will see the rain happening at the customer, but not at the delivery place or not at the place where they take the delivery from. So then they won't get the surcharge. The customer is charged, the delivery agent is not getting it, so it's stuck in between.
Yeah.
And having said that, with the infrastructure also, there are complaints that we don't have proper shelters and waiting places where we have to collect the delivery from. Hotels, for example, they are collecting the delivery in mid-afternoon, where they get most of the deliveries at the time. We all want to sit at home and deliver when it is hot or rain, right? So they don't have place to stand, and there are some hotels, restaurants, all this stuff. They don't want people to enter in. They are not willing to give water, all that kind. So it's not just about in between stops, but stops and facilities at the source too, where they're starting from.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing was what Nitesh was pointing out earlier, uniforms. So a lot of them wear sort of synthetic uniforms we know how it feels like if you wear synthetic on a summer day and step out, and that if you're out in the sun for like 13 hours, 14 hours. It's obviously going to add to the physical toll that the work is going to take on. So one thing that a platform can do is also just change the uniforms that is being offered to workers.
And the workers are paying for the uniforms.
Can I add one more aspect that you're not seeing? It's the customer's insensitivity. Sensitization is something that is missing throughout the cycle. When a customer is sensitive towards it, they will adjust to the temperature change and the delays accordingly. Like how he mentioned that when he was working outside India, the customers were not very particular about delivery time and other things. So how the social media and the advertisement has been put in place and the onus of liability ends up with the delivery people rather than the customer and the employer. So I think that is something that needs to be discussed as well.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
onus of
So she will
responsibility-
talk about bullying.
Yeah, we did do a campaign recently where the efforts was at appealing to the customer to sort of sensitizing the customers, spreading awareness on how to be a more conscientious customer, but also to sort of empower the customers to hold the platforms responsible. Demand these things from the platforms. And of course, with customers, it's also an added issue of class, caste in India. Socially, the way that labor processes are sort of structured.
The way that the platform also shows it a lot, like I remember that Blinkit's whenever you order something during the rain, it shows that if your order may be delayed because it's raining. Same way you do it for the heat, right? Like that is how you can make the customers used to the fact that it's going to take time.
Yes.
Because in the rain we are used to, like it's raining outside, it's going to take time. So that is also something that the platform can do.
I think even the platforms that have been built, especially Swiggy or any others per se, have been more oriented towards the customer. They work for the customer, not for their employees. That is given. So there was this one app I used in another country in Europe. It's called Bolt, and my order did not come for 1.5 hours. And then I went and checked. Swiggy has this option of where is my order, and then you can opt to say why hasn't it come and all that. This one did not have that option. It either said cancel your order or take a refund or order something else. So that option should also be, I think the platform should look at it that way also. Like protect your employees as well, not only be only for the customers. So I think given how customer oriented apps in India run, they are looking only at profits. Are they looking at protecting? No. So I think that's also a point that has to be taken.
Yeah, for sure. Also, the nature of surveillance, right? Because the worker is being surveyed by the platform in real time, and also by the consumer for some reason. There is no need for us to track every second where the delivery worker is. For instance, I'm sure this worker would have also, on top of the notifications from the delivery app, he would have been getting calls from the customer saying, why are you stopping here for 5 minutes? I have been waiting for my order. So that increased sort of surveillance, both by the customer as well as by the platform. I think we can go to the next. We just have one more story. We just finish it and then we go ahead.
Yeah. So we have Lakshmi's story, and you guys, I think, haven't seen any female workers on the ground. Very less, maybe not. Yeah. So I'll read a story of Lakshmi. So Lakshmi is a 35-year-old delivery worker in Bangalore. She joined Zepto a few years ago after years of working in a garment factory that shut down during the pandemic. She lives in a one-room house in the periphery of the city with her 5-year-old son and her mother. Her earnings from Zepto deliveries are the family's only steady income. Lakshmi says she chose delivery work for the freedom it offered, the ability to log in and out when she needed, to take care of her son and mother. But in practice, that flexibility has meant instability. Her daily earnings depend entirely on how many hours she writes and how many orders she gets. When her mother falls ill or her son's school is closed, she has to stay home, leading to her weekly incentives dropping sharply. And unlike her male counterparts, she does not feel safe working beyond 9 pm, further reducing her potential earnings. The summer this year has been especially harsh. She often finds herself lightheaded while waiting outside warehouses or at traffic signals. To avoid having to use unclean public toilets, she drinks very little water during her shift. Over the past few days, she has been experiencing a burning sensation during urination, but has not visited a doctor. The local clinic near her house is open only in the mornings and evenings, both times when she's working. One afternoon, she fainted while making a delivery in Indranagar. A passerby helped her to shaded spot and called an auto to take her home. When she informed Zepto through the app, customer support only noted her complaint and asked her to rest and resume work when possible. No medical help or compensation was offered. It was only later that she managed to visit a clinic, where the doctor told her she was severely dehydrated, which has caused both the UTI and a heat stroke. The app keeps sending her reminders to drink water, but as Lakshmi says, neither do they provide enough drinking water, nor does the city has enough clean toilets.
So we saw the story of Irfan, who was a male delivery worker. So from Lakshmi's story, do you think, looking at all three actors, city, platforms, and the state from like a gender perspective, is there anything that we can add to what each
Safe
of these
and
actors can do better?
Safe environment.
Yeah, like safe cities, which is essentially both. Multiple forms of safe cities, right? That we're not necessarily referring to policing, but things like street lights. Even better accountability from the platform in case she feels unsafe. In case there is like an untoward incident, what does she do? Does she have an emergency button on her phone? If she presses that button, will a human speak to her, or will it be like an automated idea that speaks to her? Anything else? We spoke about restrooms here, which was, not restrooms, we spoke about resting stops, like cooling stops. Here we also see toilets. She does not have access to clean toilets. Or water.
And it's not just for the worker itself. Nobody, women in the city has spaces to do. Yeah. I remember there was this event that was happening on the ground, like in a park. I wanted, like, I had diarrhea and I wanted to use a loo. I went to the public toilet. I did opt for it, but it had no flush, it had no water, nothing.
It's a nightmare. You sign up for a nightmare when you go to a public toilet. It's like it's an emergency. That's the reason why you're going there. Otherwise, you would not.
Yeah, exactly. And for if she's working multiple hours a day, she's probably also working when she's menstruating. And she does not have access to clean toilets either by the city or by the platforms. Even platforms are not like building toilets. In fact, not just for the female workers, even for the male workers, even they don't have access to toilets. Either they pay by the side of the road or they find whatever non-functional toilet and are forced to use
We
it.
heard from a male cab driver saying this. I limit myself to drinking maximum of a liter of water because I don't want to go into the public trees. There are no public trees on his road, on his direction or way, and then he doesn't want even to stop in those kind of things. So
Yeah, maintenance is something that is always missing. Even though there are public infrastructures, they are not accessible and not maintained properly. So yeah, very unclear.
Also, sorry,
Please.
sorry. No, I was just adding another point is
Yeah, and that's what makes them inaccessible for people. So we have had this perception, and there is a behavioral change that we have. We won't use public toilets. Right? But I come from a city where public toilets are now manageable and I can use them. Right? I come from Bhopal area. So yeah, so there I can actually use public toilets because I know they're very clean. So at least the emergency rate I don't have to run to a nearest mall, but I can use it. That behavior change came after 4-5 years of rigorous intervention that included the state and the people. Right? So I think that is missing somehow across India in a general level, and that is where we need to work. So it's the state. Yes,
Yeah, I was adding that, even like this is a story that's based in Bangalore because you mentioned Indira Nagar. Yeah. I mean, 9 p.m. I would still say, like in Delhi, I would say for women to work after 8-9 p.m. is the right. If it's in Bangalore, imagine Delhi. So, I mean, when I came here to Hyderabad and traveling back from at 10 p.m., I was scared, but then everybody said that okay, it's not Delhi, it's Hyderabad, it's fine. So, it's a culture shock in that manner. So, I can imagine that because I don't see female gig workers in Delhi. None at all, at least. I haven't seen a single one from my own eyes at least. So, I mean, the fact that it's happening in Bangalore, we need more female workers as well. They also need jobs there. So, like, how can we make that city safe for them to work as well? So that more female workers are also coming in.
When we think of Swiggy, Zomato, and Amazon, and the delivery people, we just expect them to be male, and then we don't expect any female workers.
Yeah.
And all the rules and regulations are kind of workable according to for men. Yeah. Now as a female, there are a lot of things we have to think about. Like imagine Lakshmi might Lakshmi might have called it. Ma'am said they have to wait and they don't have proper place to wait in the restaurants and all. Imagine having so many men waiting, takeaway area. I see a lot of Swiggy people just waiting there. Imagine between all those men, one woman is just standing. Imagine how uncomfortable or unsafe that she might feel. So there are a lot of things that we have to consider when a female employee, female gig worker is there. So and also who once she faces anything like a harassment by anyone, let it be a fellow gig worker or let it be anyone, who does she have to report? What is the process next? How does she have to at least in workspace we have POSH and then we can go about it, but we don't have anything like that in this.
Even for medical leaves for that matter, she can the thing that you're talking about, they don't have a status as an employee, so they don't get leave, they don't get health insurance, for example. Even if it's not health insurance, just get some medical allowance. So yeah, again, employees की status में भी क्या benefits आते हैं, then we have to think about that.
And if now there is Lakshmi and obviously female gig worker, now maternity will come into picture for a lot of women if they are in that. And then obviously maternity benefits are.
There is no maternity
benefit. There are no.
There is just to add to this, so Zomato, any publicly listed company, any top 100 publicly listed companies have to do something called a human rights due diligence in their offices. So you have to ensure that across your supply chain, not supply chain if it's like a trading business company, but if it's something like Zomato, you have to make sure that every worker that is employed with the company is the work is fair. They're treated in a dignified, humane manner. There are a bunch of sort of indicators that come under human rights due diligence. And if you look at Zomato's human rights due diligence, it is excellent. Because workers are not considered employees, so there is no human rights diligence done of the platform workers. It is only of the employees who work at the Amazon, the Zomato office that are considered for the human rights due diligence survey. So absolutely, considering them employees is important for multiple reasons: social security, but also to be able to sort of trace worker rights in these organizations. Yes.
So, if there is a people of some from are they allowed to use the health issues from the past?
It depends on the hotel. Like if the restaurant is polite, perhaps, but it's not a mandate for the restaurants to allow workers to use their toilets.
Sometimes even like we are also like if I go to a cafe and they know if I don't buy something from them, they just refuse to let me use the washroom, which is illegal by law, I feel. And they still say no to us. What I mean, they're not going to let the platform worker enter.
Yeah. Another thing is, so the state does, so the NDMA, the National Disaster Management Authority, has issued guidelines for platform workers in the context of extreme heat, but there is no implementation body. These are just guidelines. There's no institutional oversight. There's no one looking at it and ensuring that the guidelines are being followed. Just want to talk about some of the guidelines.
So basically, we worked pretty hard in the last 6 months with NDMA to have guidelines. So literally, NDMA is not an implementation body. It sends the advisory to the general authorities. They have advisory that says that like working hours that we spoke about, they sometimes literally advise the retailers to not to push workers to particularly time at that particular time, but it doesn't reflect the real time. Providing the shelters and all that is one of those things. But again, the real question is that we have a good advisory and all that, but how much we see the implementation part and see how we can do it better. Right? So that's one of the issues also we face on the ground, where this is slow. You know how progressive works and all that. But yeah.
Thanks. So, if there's any last comments, we can look at it. But I think we're also actually using it. Just kidding.
In all the platforms, you have Swiggy, and then Zomato, Stepto has come saying I'll deliver in 10 minutes, and there's some other app coming saying I'll deliver in 5 minutes. It is a very the faster you deliver, the higher your standing in the market. But I feel all of these platforms should come together and say these are the rules. This is what we do for the workers. If this is our standard time, you will not go above it and we will stick to it and we'll all follow that. So I think it is the platforms that should come together and make this decision and not go overboard and make sure that you are somewhere, depressing your employees.
I'm going to make a slight change to that. I'm going to say it's the state because the platforms are able to because that's what brings them revenue. So unless the state steps in and actively regulates platforms, because this 10-minute delivery model does not exist in any other city in the world. It has been tried in the US, it has not worked.
That also has the business model behind that is it is only for groceries, one. And the groceries also, they have point of supplies for every 5-kilometer radius. So delivering in 10 minutes is feasible. Unless if they do not have their supply points for every 5-kilometer radius circle, then they're exploiting their gig workers.
Just to sort of challenge that notion, we've seen that it's not. So if a worker goes to the warehouse, the worker has to collect. Or there is sometimes there's a collector who but usually it's the worker who collects. You spend 2-3 minutes there, depending on the length of the order. and navigating the roads. Again, we know poor roads, poor traffic conditions, extreme heat. They're not allowed into apartments. They're not allowed into lifts.
Yeah, that is
So unless they are racing against time for every single task that they do, it is realistically not possible for them to do it in 10 minutes every time. Maybe one time, if it's like a 500-meter distance between the house and the warehouse, but usually it is not. So
Yeah, the operationally, this is the model. But
Ideally,
ad hoc, whatever you're saying is like the ad hoc struggles that they have.
this is like the norm, the way that a worker generally, the time that a worker generally takes is at least 15 to 20 minutes. Like if we're humanly allowing him to do this job. So just to sort of, I think, come back to the board and tie everything together. So like we saw in Irfan and Lakshmi's story, for the heat burden on them to be reduced, for work to become slightly more humane and decent, what we call decent work, for both of these workers, we need to hold different actors accountable at different levels. If only the platform does this, the platform is maybe giving them good uniforms, sending heat wave alerts. Is that enough? We see that that's not enough. You need a state coming in to regulate. You need them to be classified as employees. There needs to be social security. At the same time, if your city is not governed well, it's also an urban governance question. If you don't have toilets, if you don't have shaded spaces, again, it sort of takes a physical and mental toll on the delivery worker. So it is by the sort of meaningful coming together of all three actors at different capacities can we sort of imagine an urban future that is like just decent for all platform workers, all outdoor workers in general, but specifically for platform workers. Any comments or questions? We don't have a lot of time.
I think we can take the questions
Yeah,
during
maybe
the
answer.
tea break.
Just 5 minutes.
The tea break will finish in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we can do more.
So,
Okay.
Sorry.
While having tea, I think you guys can have the discussion together.
2 minutes. We started late. We imagine city as a workplace. So, do it. It will give you a perspective of how cities, our argument is based on are the cities are ready for as a workplace or not. We talk about different delivery partners that you see on the road. Are they partners? Well, let's see. So yeah, do give it a read and see how you like it or not. Next.
If you want to be more involved and advocate for worker rights, this is our Instagram handle where we do a bit of campaigning and bring out stories from the field. Feel free to sort of be as involved as you.
And we do a lot of cool illustration by the way. And it's interesting how we bring stories from the ground to reality by illustrations, videos. And by the way, these are all pro bono. We have amazing illustrators, people in general, public, who help us to bring the stories up. So yeah, do give it a like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much.
Thank you.